The Danish Girl is about a married couple living in 1920s Copenhagen, two painters whose marriage and work life start going through some major changes, beginning with a seemingly trivial moment at first, when the husband rediscovers his true gender identification as a female, which will set him out on a groundbreaking journey as a pioneer in transsexualism. Now, this is another film based on a true story. However, apparently this film is only loosely based on a novel, a book that allegedly already obscured pretty much of the actual story. Many of the facts were changed for the convenience of the plot, and even some of the darker stuff this couple actually went through together were omitted in entirety. I figured I should point this out because we had a great many films in 2015 that were allegedly based on true stories, and whether they were good or bad, they all came under criticism for this very fact, that they deviated too much from their source material. In some cases I agree, however, in this case, to what percent this film is actually faithful to the true story shouldn't really be a factor in your viewing experience. It is made pretty clear that this is a loose adaptation, and I think you should just watch it as fiction, honestly. Going into this film, I was worried that this might turn out to be this year's Theory of Everything, you know, the Stephen Hawking biopic. And not that that film is bad, it just seemed to me the type of film that is only made to win awards for its actors. It isn't really made for an audience, you know what I mean? We professionals prefer to call these films Oscar bait. Considering that this is indeed part loosely adapted biopic and part love story, not to mention that it stars the same lead actor, Eddie Redmayne, this was about as close to becoming this year's Theory of Everything as you can get. While I think that the convenient plot and the predictable storyline of these types of films is present here as well, I thought that this was somewhat of a better movie for a couple of reasons. There is something that is prominent, especially in like the first half of the film. There is this kind of playfulness to the whole thing. And after watching the DP30 interview with director Tom Hooper, which is something I occasionally do before reviewing a film like this as research, his method of working with his actors became pretty clear to me. It is obvious that his collaboration with his actors is quite fluid. He gives careful consideration to their reasonings for what a character should and should not do, and why. Working this way together, I think they found quite an interesting and effective balance in telling this story. They managed to evoke both the joy, but also the pain these characters have to go through. There is humor in the film, which I thought worked quite well, but at the same time, you can imagine what a transgender person had to go through in the 1920s, when we were probably still in the Stone Age as far as anything LGBT related. The director also mentioned that the script for the film was a relatively short one, and this was something I pretty much picked up on as I was watching it. There doesn't really seem to be much dialogue in the film. Characters don't really communicate with each other as much verbally as they do through body language, as they do through gestures, some of them more subtle, others less, and I think it's one of the strongest points of the film. It was really awesome to see. There was one thing I initially was pretty sure was going to bug me about this film, and that was that this character, his discovery that he wants to be a female, is going to happen much too quickly, much too suddenly, and therefore much too unrealistically, at least for me, the way I imagine it happens in real life. I don't know. But it really doesn't. I mean, precisely because of those things I mentioned, there's that fluidness to the acting, and to the way these characters communicate with each other. It really gave a strong sense of history to these characters, and especially to this couple, whose chemistry is absolutely astonishing, to say the least. And it made me realize that this is a story much more about revelation rather than transformation, because the female side of him was always there underneath. It just never really had a chance to surface. It was really exciting to see a person chase a dream like this, and the story was made much more cinematic, where it really didn't need a lot of backstory explaining things further. Just a couple of lines of dialogue were enough. We didn't really need flashbacks showing us past experiences these characters went through. No, everything was pretty clear, everything clicked, everything pretty much made sense, and everything was pretty easily understandable. These characters' histories and relationships with each other were made pretty easily understandable without having to be over-explained. It felt like a nice little collaborative project that turned out quite fine, so I would recommend it. It's not a masterpiece, it's fairly predictable, the acting is phenomenal however, of course, so I would recommend it. You can decide for yourself if you want to check it out or not. I personally enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, people, and I will see you later.